For joining us. I am so excited today to be talking to Dr. Randal D. Pinkett. He, of course, is a man who has 5 academic degrees. He is an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author. You have lent your voice to generations in business and technology. Good morning and welcome.
Hey, Linda, thank you for having me on the program. I appreciate this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I am looking forward to it as well. So let me ask you something, because you have done so much, but I saw in an interview where you actually said that nobody in your family was entrepreneurs.
No, that's exactly right. I'm a first-generation entrepreneur, and the way I got introduced to entrepreneurship was through a family friend, a gentleman I grew up with in my neighborhood, Wayne Abbott. We ended up going to college together at Rutgers University, although Wayne was 2 years ahead of me. But Wayne started a company as a student in college. And to make a long story short, when I saw Wayne running a business at the age of 19, I said, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And even though I was that kid who sold lemonade and sold candy and tried to sell my toys, I never
tried to sell your toys?
I tried to sell my toys. Yes, I did. And the kids were all broke like me, so I didn't sell any toys. But despite that beginning, I never imagined myself as an entrepreneur because I never knew anyone who was an entrepreneur. And Wayne was a game changer and literally changed the trajectory of my career and my life.
And he got you started. Now, did you start designing video games when you were young?
That's exactly right. The other piece of the story is when my brother and I were young, we told our parents we wanted a video game, and I'll never forget what my dad's response was. He said, if you want to play the video game, you have to make the video game. And we were like, really, dude?
Really, for real?
Is it that serious? He was like, it's that serious. And my dad was a math and physics guy, so he was way ahead on this whole technology trajectory, and that was game-changing too. My brother and I were writing code and designing video games in elementary school, in junior high school, and it has propelled my career. So I'm not only an entrepreneur, I'm a technology entrepreneur, and I really owe that to my parents and to Wayne.
That, I have never heard of anything like that, where your dad would say, okay, you design the game yourself instead of running over to the store and just getting it for you. Man, your dad was something special, okay?
Yeah, that's what we call hardcore. That's hardcore.
That's hardcore for real. So then you went on, obviously, and you got your degrees, and then you got into the business world, and of course, a lot of people, well, most of us know you, obviously, for being the winner, the first African-American winner of The Apprentice. And man, you were the man, and then when you won, they asked you to share it.
Yes.
What's up with that?
Well, I'll tell you, Alfred Edmond from Black Enterprise magazine, editor-in-chief, he had a great commentary in an article he wrote after my finale. He said, what happened to Randal is what happens to African Americans every day in corporate America. It just so happens he had 14 million people watching when it happened to him. And it really did reinforce this age-old adage that we have to be twice as good to be considered on the same level as others. That despite what, in my humble opinion, was a clear and decisive victory in my performance on The Apprentice, nonetheless, Donald Trump, for some reasons that I believe really did reflect a level of both unconscious bias and a level of racism, he had the gall to ask me to share the title with the runner-up when it was not a tie, it was not even a close competition, and so it was insulting. But I'm proud of my response.
I am too.
The message, well, thank you, and it's in the message to others that says, when you've earned the victory, do not be afraid to claim the victory, and so I claim my victory.
You did, and people may have gotten mad and didn't understand that, but when you explain it, you understand you won fair and square, like we used to say as kids. You won fair and square.
That's exactly right. And the rules of the game for every season of The Apprentice, before me and after me, which were stated by Donald on every episode, is at the end of this competition, I will hire one of you to be my apprentice. He never said two. He never said that I'm looking at hiring multiple folks, and he never asked that question before me, and he never asked that question after me, which again to me only reinforces that there was something more there that I think had to boil down to race.
But and you know something, and Doctor, this is the one thing that was good that you did stand up for yourself, regardless of the criticism or anything else that went along with that. You stood up for yourself, and that showed a lot too. That's an example as well. And then you wrote your book, Black Faces in White Places.
Yes.
And being an entrepreneur in corporate America, there are some challenges. What are some of the things that you can say quickly that we may have to overcome?
Well, even though we're sitting in 2017, as you know, we're still underrepresented in so many places and spaces. And my advice of what we face and what we have to overcome is really still breaking stereotypes, breaking assumptions about what we can and can't do, where we should and shouldn't be, what halls and boardrooms and executive tables we should and shouldn't be at. And my advice to that is we have to be excellent at what we do. I'll say it very simply. Excellence is not a solution to racism, but it is the best counter strategy to racism.
So it's really true that we have to be twice as good.
Sadly. I believe that there are still vestiges of that assumption that reverberate in the halls of corporate America and the boardrooms of entrepreneurship and the like, that we have to be good at what we do. We have to be great at what we do in order to dispel and to counterbalance what are still both spoken and unspoken, conscious and unconscious assumptions about what we can do and where we should be. So sadly, it's a sobering reality of the 21st century. We still have to work twice as hard.
But you also said that we still have to be true to ourselves, right? How do we do that?
And that's a great point, because what I don't want listeners to think is that this should be a burden or in some way be a weight that we have to carry. But I don't see it as a burden. I see it as an opportunity, and one that when I think about the accomplishments of our ancestors who bore much greater challenges than we do, the way progress is made is by everyone ensuring that the hard work and the sweat equity that we put into what we do to change perceptions, to break down stereotypes, to open doors, to be trailblazers, that we do that with pride. We do that recognizing that we are not being given anything, but rather we earn it, and that we pass those lessons on to the next generation. So I see excellence as a source of pride, because I know I am falling in line with a legacy of excellence. So I'm simply a continuation of that legacy.
And like you said, passing it down, because now we have a whole new genre of people coming up in corporate America today.
That's exactly right. We've got millennials and Generation Y, and while this generation does experience greater societal diversity, greater diversity within our country, there are still, and we've made tremendous progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. And so we can't get complacent, and we cannot allow our young people to believe that all of our problems are solved, that we live in this supposed post-racial society. Otherwise, it's going to smack them in the face once they get out of the protective environments of high schools and maybe even colleges and hit the harsh realities of the working world. And so we have to really prepare them for that, but at the same time, arm them and equip them with a strong identity and a strong sense of purpose to withstand those challenges.
Yeah, and challenges we do have. We are talking to the amazing Dr. Randal Pinkett, and of course you're going to be a part of the Empower series on Saturday, May the 20th at the Highland Hills Library in Dallas. It's free and open to the public. What is something that you are going to talk to us about when you get there?
Well, I'm excited. I'm very excited to be coming to Dallas as part of the Empower series, and I was really honored by the invitation, and I'm looking forward to engaging with the community. And my message really is reflective of what we've talked about. It has to do with excellence. It has to do with strategies for navigating the 21st century landscape. And I believe the strategies that it took to be successful in, say, the 60s or 70s or 80s are much different than the strategies needed to be successful today. That our challenges today are not fire hoses or police dogs or being refused to be served at a lunch counter. Today, they're much more subtle, much more difficult to articulate, much more difficult to navigate, and much more difficult to eradicate. And so I want to talk about what are the game-changing strategies for 2017 that I can offer my observations and my advice to Dallas, and I'm excited to be coming.
And we are excited to have you. Dr. Randal Pinkett, of course, the Empower series on Saturday, May the 20th. We got some more to talk to you about. You know I got a few more questions. You got me fired up. We got more coming up. We are excited talking to Dr. Randal Pinkett. Yes, you remember him from season 4 of The Apprentice. He is one of the first African-American winners of that, and we're talking about a lot of things. Of course, you've done so much more since then as an author. You have a few books out. One of the books I wanted to talk to you about, Dr. Pinkett, was The Campus CEO. Now, is that for a entrepreneur, the young entrepreneur's guide to launching a multi-million-dollar business?
Yes. So Campus CEO was the very first book that I authored. So it holds a near and dear place in my heart. And I say that because I was a campus CEO.
Really? Now, wait a minute. What did you sell on campus since you tried to sell your toys as a child?
So I sold a product that is fading into obscurity called compact discs, CDs.
Oh, my goodness. Really?
Yeah. I bought them wholesale from a distributor. They were able to send me product overnight. I had a huge catalog, like a phone book, and I would take orders from students on campus. There was no music store on campus, so they would place orders with me. I would deliver the music to their doorsteps. And that was my very first official company, registered and sales tax and et cetera, et cetera. So I was a campus CEO. And the book is designed to equip young entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs with all the lessons I learned about starting and growing a company that I was never taught. So while I didn't have the benefit of a one-stop guide to being a new entrepreneur, Campus CEO is both a reflection of my story, but also an acknowledgement of my challenges with the hopes that I can equip others to not have the same challenges that I did.
What's one of the things in your book that sticks out that you had to learn?
Well, one of the things that I learned, which is far more prevalent now, is that entrepreneurs are becoming more and more successful at younger and younger ages. Most of us know Bill Gates started in college, but not everybody knows that Michael Dell of Dell Computers, started at the University of Texas. That Google and Yahoo and Facebook and even Nike and Kinko's, if you're been around long enough to remember when Kinko's was called Kinko's.
Yes, I do.
And right now, and Federal Express and Pizza Hut and Subway, and the list goes on. I had no idea all of these marquee companies were started by young people. And it really changed my mindset about this long-standing assumption that you have to have lots of experience to be successful, that you could be 15 years old and run a successful enterprise. You could be a college student and run a successful enterprise, and that was my lived experience. I started at 19 with my first business.
Wow, that is very impressive, actually, to know all of that. And when you think about it, you just don't think about it because you think people will have been around for a long, long time.
That's right, and it really does dispel myths about what young people can and can't do. And I think that, in fact, being young is in many ways an asset and not a liability because you see the world differently. And because of that, you see opportunities that others just don't see.
You just open yourself up and go for it and not talk yourself out of it sometimes.
That's right. That's exactly right. You got to do like Nike's been saying, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. That's what my T-shirt says, just do it. But even, what about someone that it may not be a millennial now or later on in life, or you're working a corporate job and you want to do an entrepreneur type life?
Yeah, well, I believe that entrepreneurship is a viable option for anyone at any age, at any time. And I would further argue that entrepreneurial thinking like an entrepreneur, is one of the core competencies to be competitive in the 21st century. And to be more specific, the entrepreneur's mindset is creativity, resourcefulness, courage, passion, and resilience. And when you embody those characteristics, you think like an entrepreneur. And my second book was No Money Down CEO. So if I say Campus CEO is for the young entrepreneurs, No Money Down CEO is for the broke entrepreneurs.
Okay, let's talk about the broke entrepreneurs. Now you're talking my language. No, seriously, what was something that you would say to a broke entrepreneur or someone that's really got that passion and drive?
No, I'm glad you asked. What I learned in researching No Money Down CEO are three statistics, real quick. Statistic number one, where do companies usually get their money, their startup money? The answer is 80% of companies get their startup money from the founders. Now, that doesn't solve our problems. If you're a broke founder, you got a problem. Second statistic is how much money do they raise? And the answer is for 50% of successful companies, not failed but successful, they raised $20,000 or less. For a third of successful companies, they raised $10,000 or less. And then 1 out of every 10 successful companies starts with $1,000 or less. And to be clear, I was in the category of or less because I was broke. I had no money. But the third stat is basically a summary point, which is the tail of the tape of entrepreneurship is not going out and getting lots of money. The story really is of having very little and figuring out how to make something out of nothing. And so my advice is find what you're passionate about, and equally importantly, build a solid team so that you've got enough firepower, enough willpower, enough human power, enough intellectual power that you can turn your idea from something into nothing without having to have lots of money to do it. And that's how most entrepreneurs pull it off.
Now, that's a very strong point, that when you do build a solid team. Now, is it true that people that they also buy into you as that entrepreneur?
That's right. There's an old saying that people don't bet on ideas, they bet on teams.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite books is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And in the book, which compares great companies to good companies, not good to bad, but good to great. And one of the principles in that book is about while most entrepreneurs think what and then who, what should we be doing, and then who should be on our team to get it done, the great entrepreneur thinks the opposite, thinks who first and then what. Who should be on my team? Who do I have a level of effective collaboration with? Who complements my strengths by bringing other strengths to the table? Only when I figure out the who first do we then get around the table and say, okay, given who's at the table, now what should we be doing? Which says very simply, do not conform the team to the strategy, but the strategy to the team.
Wow. Conform the strategy to the team. Now, that's a strong point right there. And I know we're going to be getting a lot more of these points at the Empower series. Of course, it's going to be Saturday, May 20th. You're going to be here for a few days, as a matter of fact. They're moving you around. But this one at the Highland Hill Library, 10 a.m., and it's open to the public. It's absolutely free. If you really want to come in and actually hear from Dr. Randal Pinkett, this would definitely be the place to do it.